All right, the time is 7:03 p.m. on August 28th, and we will begin our regular school board meeting. I apologize for beginning a few minutes late. Clerk Milner, if you would please take attendance.
Director Pine.
Here.
Director Zuzek.
Here.
Vice Chair Dressley.
Here.
Chair Tate.
Here.
Director Bruns.
Here.
Director Milner here. And Director Biermeyer.
Here.
Perfect, thank you. All right, now if I could please ask everyone to stand and remove your headwear if you have any for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, next I am looking for a motion on the agenda.
Zuzek makes a motion to approve the agenda.
All right, can I get a second?
Bruns will second.
All right, any discussion? All right, seeing none. Again, as we have a remote participant, we will be doing roll call votes all evening this evening, as that is required per state statute. So Clerk Milner, could you please take a vote on the approval of the agenda?
Director Pine.
Yes.
Director Zuzek.
Aye.
Vice Chair Dressley.
Aye.
Chair Tate.
Aye.
Director Bruns.
Aye.
Director Milner, aye. And Director Biermeyer.
All right, thank you. Next, I'd like to just tell the crowd here that we appreciate your being here, and if you're joining us online or in person or even later viewing us online, we appreciate your involvement in Hastings Public Schools, so thank you. And next up, we have the Raider Spotlight.
All right, just a couple of things here. So first and foremost, we have been working with HCTV and they have provided a video for us, and I just want to take a minute to show that. Thank HCTV, specifically Mike and Kurt there, and then also Carrie Gore for all of her work behind the scenes. With over 300 passionate educators, our dedication to student success has never been stronger. These educators are more than teachers.
Let's paint the picture.
They are mentors who ignite curiosity and inspire a lifelong passion for learning. Our schools provide real-world experiences through cutting-edge programs in engineering and environmental science. At Hastings, we take pride in our blend of rigorous academics and enriching arts and athletic programs. These programs nourish our students' educational journey, enhancing their creativity and discipline and fostering skills that resonate throughout their academic and personal lives. This is Hastings Public Schools, where we care, we empower, and we achieve. Students are at the heart of all we do. A couple of samples of things that I liked, and they just did a phenomenal job. So just a shout out to that. And then just also, we had our back to school welcome back for everyone, and Casey Likes performed for us and just did a phenomenal job. And our admin team played along also. So thank you for that. And hopefully there's no workman's comp or anything after that. Just kidding. Just kidding. But just thank you for that, and certainly deserve to be recognized.
Thank you. All right, next up we have our public comment session. And so tonight we have one speaker who will be allotted 3 minutes of time, and Ms. Ludwig has a 30-second sign to alert to the time remaining, as well as a timer to signal the end of the 3 minutes. We ask that speakers state their name for the record and refrain from using this time to criticize or complain about any specific employee by name. Please be aware that the school board is interested in hearing comments from the public and will listen carefully, but is not obligated to respond or debate in this setting. And we also request that speakers be respectful. Comments made by any others may be ruled out of order, and those not abiding by this may potentially be asked to leave the meeting. So with that, I'd like to welcome Ms. Hedin tonight.
Thank you. My name is Lisa Hedin. I'm a resident of Denmark Township and a non-contract instructional student assistant. I have 4 topics, but I might not get to them, but they're all pretty darn quick. As you may recall, I reported, we've got legal fee reports coming from public requests. First quarter this year reported was about $3,700 for board-related requests and associated legal fees. I just found out based on a second data request that for the second quarter that fell to just $600 additionally. So we're at about $4,300 on board associated fees. I'm a little concerned based on some of the feedback that's coming in with regard to some of the 600 series policies, that's gonna require some additional legal services and support to move from a non-standard or a non-model policy. But we'll wait and see. But I just thought that's important data. On the 17th of September, the Minnesota League of Women Voters is hosting a virtual National Voter Registration Day in association primarily with high schools. Based on their intern, they're targeting 16, 17, and 18-year-olds for voter registration. It's a virtual half-hour session offered twice a day. I'd like to encourage Hastings to partner and sign up for that program. And I want to let you know that AAUW, American Association of University Women Hastings, would be ready to provide volunteer services if that's necessary as part of that program. Because we'd be interested in seeing that increase in voter registration amongst young people. Later tonight, you're gonna make a decision with regard to some school district expenditures on the Hastings Hockey Arena. I wanna point out for historical reference that the Joint Powers Agreement has been used primarily in previous decades for building new facilities that were jointly needed by the city and the school district. It has not been used for maintenance. It has not been used for ongoing investment. And I would certainly have some concerns based on the city administrator's presentation at the work session that there's already anticipated additional work with regard to lighting in the parking lot, and choosing to make an additional payment at this time might be obligating the school to a precedent of ongoing maintenance. And I have some concerns about that. Also, this wasn't a very well coordinated project. I'd be certainly open to, and we've been open to doing work with the city, but we're hearing about this awfully late in the process. And I think it's a little disingenuous to intimate that for 4 years, it was not possible to establish a meeting with us between a school administrator and the city administrator. I'm not sure that that was very accurate. And then just on the back of the video, I wanna say, let's keep that momentum going, right? I hope all of you and all of the community members can continue to be great advocates for the school district and tell that story, because that's our story. It's who we are now and it's who we aspire to be. And when we hear about challenges that families are having, we wanna listen authentically, but we also want to respond from that place of our aspirations as a district and the work that's ongoing and keep that positive focus. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, next up we have reports and discussions. First one is the superintendent report.
All right, just a couple of things. So back to school workshop, we're in the midst of that right now. You've heard me refer to it as the Super Bowl. And I mentioned it yesterday as well, but I firmly believe how we start a school year, whether it's for our students in our classroom or it's for our staff, it matters. And it sets the tone for the positivity and the momentum for the school year. So just again, thank you for the support and really providing what I think has been an extremely well organized back to school event. And then just also recognizing our staff and all the work that they're doing. You mentioned the READ Act, and it's a heavy lift. And when we talk about our back to school schedule this year, it was really a Tetris puzzle, going, okay, we have to do this, and putting it all into place. And we also were able to put in the strengths work, which I think is really a way to pull it all together and make people really celebrate how they're showing up and understanding that a little better as well. So that's what I have. Anxious for next week, of course.
Thank you. And I have to apologize. Vice Chair Dressley just informed me I forgot to approve our previous minutes.
It was actually
So.
Director Zuzek.
Sorry. No, sorry. Thank you. Director Zuzik, thank you for, okay, I skipped an item on the agenda. Thanks all for letting me know. Anyway, I will go back for just a moment. I am looking for a motion on the minutes from July 31st, 2024 and August 7th, 2024.
Make a motion to approve the minutes from July 31st, 2024 and August 7th, 2024.
All right, can I get a second, please?
Milner, second.
All right, any discussion? All right, and with that, we need to take a roll call vote for the minutes approval. Clerk Melvin.
Director Pine,
Aye.
Director Zuzik,
Aye.
Vice Chair Dressley,
Aye.
Chair Tate,
Aye.
Director Bruns,
Aye.
Director Milner, aye. Director Biermeyer.
Aye.
All right, thank you. And with that, the approval of the minutes for July 31st, 2024 and August 7th, 2024 passes unanimously. All right, and now we will skip back to Superintendent Champa with annual survey discussion.
All right, so if you click on that, Tammy, that's a proposed schedule for our surveys. So last year we used school perceptions for our annual survey, and we surveyed our families, excuse me, our staff and our students, grades 4 and up, and we provided information to all of our families prior to launching that as well. So this follows exactly what we did last year. Really, if we want to look at the longitudinal data, I think it's important to also look at the same timeline for the when we were asking these questions. The survey will be the same as last year, again, so we can do some comparative data. So you see that it would end after MEA, and then what's not on here is that report at a board meeting would be November 20th. And then following that, I would launch another community tour. I need a really catchy name because I love the Tour of Gratitude, but I used that last year, and that would be January through March.
Any questions,
Questions?
comments? Sounds good. Okay, thank you. And next up, we have a PFAS solution update.
I'm going to use this opportunity to just introduce Scott Stockdale. If you saw the video from yesterday, you probably feel like you know him well, but Scott just joined us July 1, and welcome, Scott.
Scott Stockdale, Director of Facilities and Safety. Thank you all. So as directed, we've been trying to research options for providing PFAS filtration at the schools, and it has been an uphill battle. But first, I want to say big thanks to Jen, and then Brent Anderson, and also Denise Jorgensen, our health and safety gal. They really much did all of the work here, and so I just volunteered to present so I could come see you. So here's what we found so far. Filtering for PFAS really isn't common for a full building type of setting like we have, notwithstanding multiple buildings. So there aren't many systems that are really applicable for our building use and size. We have received 2 quotes. They're wildly different in price. And the info we are finding is also varied, but they're both granular activated carbon systems, which is what the city is looking to put in as well. So Wigan Water Technologies, theirs is $285,000. That includes the system and some startup assistance. It does not include any install. And then the second quote we received was from Crystal Quest for $49,320. That includes the system and some service. Thank you. But again, neither one of those quotes includes installation. So the variance between those quotes is really concerning to me. Automatically, that's a red flag. Why is one seems astronomical, the other seems like a big number, but in comparison, that's worrisome. What are we getting that, we wouldn't really be fully covered with? So we're trying to understand the systems in relation to our needs, and it's really not a common application again. So there doesn't seem to be a lot of information out there to pull from or draw from. We have some concerns with installing a system from a maintenance perspective, because it would include obviously ongoing cost for maintaining that system, the plumbing to put it in, replacing the filter media, as we continue. So that's been somewhat of an issue. Also, there's some potential health and safety risks if the system isn't maintained correctly. I'm not really worried about the Hastings maintenance team not doing that well, but when you get a system you don't know and hasn't been operated in a lot of different settings and things, you just don't know how things might go, and there are risks like Legionnaire's disease, those kinds of things that can get in that system if it's not properly maintained. So we've already filtered. The good news is we've filtered pretty much all of our commonly used water sources throughout the district, just through our drinking fountains and bottle fillers. They are PFAS safe and filtered. So obviously we all know the city's continuing to work on the issue. And I don't think they're actually even recommending any mitigation at this time. But so what we need is, that's what we know. I'm sorry it's limited in scope, but I guess what we're looking for is some feedback. Do you want us to continue searching, to table it, to revisit in 6 months, discontinue? But that's what we know, and that's kind of where we're sitting.
All right, comments? Director Zuzek?
This might still be true, that at this site, all of the potable water is separated right as it enters the building.
That's not accurate to my knowledge.
Okay.
It all comes in from the city in one source.
We'll look into that, because we did a complete separation of water sources because of lead a number of years ago, probably 10 years ago. And so to ensure that all of the potable sources in this building were lead-free. So for instance, the sinks in the fax classroom, all water in the kitchen, that sort of thing. And you'll be able to find out, but look into that, because that might be a cost savings.
So are you saying that was filtered separately after coming into the building through the main?
No, it actually, all water lines were built separately that were potentially potable. So any place that wasn't potable, like in a science lab, it would say near the sink, non-potable water. And the reason we did it was to separate out lead, because there was no way to find out where, was it in the pipe runs, was it in the fixtures? Probably both. But because of that, there might be some cost savings, but.
Do you happen to know what the time frame was for that and who the contractor might have been?
I don't remember the contractor, but I'd say 12 years ago.
Yeah, I can definitely look into that.
It might be useful in this project. So.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
So for some context for you, Director Zuzek was the principal of this building for years. So that's why he's got a little more knowledge on this than others may.
That helps, thanks.
So I guess, hearing that the drinking fountains and the bottle fillers are already all filtered, that makes me feel significantly better about going into this school year. I guess the question that I have, is do we know where the city is at with coming up with their permanent solution? Because if we're gonna, my thought is, okay, if we're gonna spend, gosh, if this doesn't include install, we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars potentially. But if the city's gonna come along in 2 to 3 years with a permanent solution for all of this, 5 years, if they're at 5, okay, they're set at 5 years. I would hope that maybe they can improve on that, but you can always hope. So yeah, if I'm concerned about spending this amount of money for a temporary fix ultimately, of what is going to be solved for us. That's my 2 cents, I guess. And
I would agree.
Yeah, I guess the other thing, right, is if we're talking about, non-potable, or we're talking about sources of water where people typically aren't drinking, we're talking about the showers, we're talking about, the toilets, the hand washing type of stuff. I guess I'm wondering, what do we know what the health risks are with continuing to use the water that we're using now with the amount of contamination that we're aware of for long-term health risks? Do we have any idea, any data on any of this? I don't.
I don't know that we have dug into that side of things. We can certainly look into that. There is some stuff on the city site, and of course, on a national level, they're producing more of that information. So I think it's readily available, but from what I'm seeing, just from what I've kind of perused on the city site and their links to different organizations that would be authorities, they're saying nothing's really changed. They've just raised the level, and so now we're having to reach to that, which doesn't make it safer. They're realizing that it's not great, but I don't think it's as much an issue for showering or hand washing as much as it is for consumption, for sure. What I'm reading is the higher risks are younger age, infants, nursing mothers, some of those same risks you'd find with, prescription drugs and stuff. Don't, if you're nursing or if you're young or if you're, then don't, or find a way to mitigate it. That's most of what I'm seeing.
Okay, thank you. Director Milner?
I was just going to say, in the meantime, something we could do as a district is there are other ways that we're getting PFAS absorbed into our systems too. So like off-gassing of brand new carpets, cleaning solutions that we use, like some of those kinds of things. So we could add it to your list to, try and find healthier cleaning solutions or just ways to decrease everyone's exposure other ways if doing the showers and the hand washing isn't feasible. We can make sure we're looking at other things. Anything that's flame retardant usually has PFAS in it, stuff like that. So just looking at ways of decreasing other exposures would be one way to help.
Dr. Bruns?
My wonder is there anyone at the Minnesota Department of Health that could look at the quotes and any of the schematics that have been brought in to maybe break it apart and say, well, this is what this means at a granular level? Maybe they have engineers too that they would tap, like that could speak better to it. And is there anyone that's already gone down this road? I know most have not, but I think about anyone else that might have been impacted in other ways and how they walked that path.
To my knowledge, no one else is really, I feel like we're sort of on the front lines of some of this when it's now coming to the front on a national scene, and then we're here more quickly because of the 3M stuff and the lawsuit and all of that. So it's not really widespread. Having said that, PFAS has been around for a really long time. But we're now understanding the dangers of it at a higher level, and it's all over the place. It's everywhere. It's in the packaging around our foods. It's, so to your point, cutting down where we can everywhere is great. Also, having said that, at the end of the day, we won't outrun it. We just can't get away from it. But we can do our best to knock it down. So I can see if someone at the Department of Health would look at our quotes, though, for sure.
That would be a free resource then.
Possibly. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, just to comment on that. So the city presentation was in last May, and they did have experts there in that area. So I think their contact information is all on that presentation as well. That's on the city site. And then my question, and I think you answered this as well, is are there any examples with either of these quotes of them having done this in large organizations? And it sounds like there's not.
That's a great question. I don't know.
Okay.
I'll have to look into that. I can find out. As a general rule, it's been something, so it's very specified. So usually these kind of systems are put in place at like a lab where they want to make sure all of their lab testing equipment is, free from any chemicals or contamination or any of that. So they'll run a PFAS system to clean all of their, your utensils at the lab. So it's those kind of applications that have nothing to do with a building-wide drinking water that like we're looking at. So it's pretty interesting to, it's not very often I go looking for something and find little or no history for it.
So no references and potentially not even a third party other than these two as options to potentially propose a solution or.
Correct, yeah, we couldn't even find a third quote.
This was asked last time, so I think I know the answer, but I'm not sure exactly. It can't be kitchen only, is that correct?
I don't think that's true. I think it could be kitchen only, but that creates its own set of problems. So the kitchen application, it doesn't, there's problems with descaling. And so we'd have to filter twice. There'd have to be the current filtering for descaling all of our dishwashers and kettles and all of those kinds of things, our ovens that heat with water, kind of like a boiler system. And then on top of that, then we'd have to find a way to introduce a filtration system for PFAS as well. And those two things apparently don't work very well together. Not to say that it can't be done or can't be looked into, but yeah.
Other comments, questions? Okay, so it sounds like you've got a couple of things to follow up on, just to get some additional information. I don't hear anybody saying, yes, we need to go forward and spend this money right now. Right? No. Just gathering some additional information and, yeah, I don't see this as the urgency I did in May. I'll say that for sure. Knowing that we've got the drinking water taken care of. So, all right, everybody good?
What's the timeline you'd like to see additional information?
Other than searching if the state has any additional support. Right, there's not a lot of resources that you can go get additional information, so we're kind of at a stall by the sounds of it, unless the state has resources, or for some reason, there's somebody that becomes a larger front runner than Hastings ISD and the city of Hastings.
I'd say what, October work session maybe? Does that sound good? Okay. Or, we don't have an October work session. November works.
30 minutes.
I'm filling
We
that
could,
out.
yeah, Mr. Dressley thinks she's gonna fill that spot, so, yeah, so let's target our October regular session probably would be better. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I'm sorry. Director Biermeyer, I am not paying attention to you. Do you have anything? Okay.
No, I'm fine.
Okay, thank you.
I'll,
Okay, thank you.
I'll wave. I'm
Sounds
listening.
good. Sounds good. All right, thank you very much.
Thanks.
All right, and next up on our agenda, we have a hockey arena update.
All right, this is in your agenda later on as an action item. So this area is just to provide discussion. And so you heard the presentation from the last meeting. And so some of those questions were posed to the city and the responses were as follows. The first one was, what is the usage? It was stated that Hastings is a high user of the facility. And the results of that, because we were doing math, of course, at the table during that time. The high school rents 18% of the ice time. The Hastings Hockey Boosters is 65%. Other organizations and summer camps are 15%. And then in addition to that, there's other birthday things and that type of thing. You asked about historic projects, and that list was provided. Really, it was since 2008, and that was, there was also that hockey project, which was in 92, I believe, to 2008. Charges for services includes concessions, open skate. I believe that was my question. What's all the other that was included in the financial information that we were given? Is sharpening, and then tax and non-tax rentals. And then bonding, we talked about that, making sure that there wasn't bonding going on with both the city and the school and double taxing our community. And so we did have a follow-up meeting with that I'll discuss as well. And then solar, there was a question about the solar array, which is $375,000, and talking about how those tax credits would be, how would that be a shared credit as well as a shared expense if there's interest in moving forward? And then rental rates, and the response to that, yes, the rates will expect to increase without a dollar amount of what that expectation is, or if there's any planned percentage or anything. So those are the answers to the questions that you posed. We met with our financial advisor with Ellers and the city administrator also. In fact, Jen met with the city administrator, Ellers, and Chris Jenkins was also in that meeting. And there's still information to be found about exactly how that is, because of course, I will speak to Jen, understands school finance very well and what bonding looks like. We don't understand exactly how that works with the city. So we actually had Ellers was going to reach out to the city department within their organization to have that conversation as well. So I just want to be crystal clear that you have a consideration before you. This is just an idea that I put out, so you had something, right? And so as it was noted, this has been a little bit of a strange approach to this because, of course, the project is well underway and we're having this conversation at this time. So back in, I believe it was May, I did a overview of this project, and at the end of that said that you had a myriad of options from doing nothing to participating to the 30%, which is what the request is. And so what this looks like is a number of things. So let me just walk through this. The updated consideration is the project cost of $5.2 million has been adjusted to account for the solar investment. So that dollar amount, which was provided in the answers, was $375,000. So we're looking at a project total at 4.825. So taking the information that we now have about exactly what our ICE rental time percentage is and what we currently pay for our ICE rental. So rounding up, right now, our current ICE rental is $85,000. So 10 years of that ICE rental at $85,000 is 18% of this project, or 17.6. If you were to go this direction, it would be my recommendation of the district that that ICE fee is waived in lieu of the project participation. So it's looking at those same dollars differently, because I wouldn't expect to pay the ICE rental fee and pay the 18% of the use as well. That next line is additional contribution, and this is if you were interested in that 30%, right? So we've got the 18%, the next is 12%, and that's an additional $59,750. That for 10 years would be an additional 12% of the project, which leads to $144,750, which would be a recommended annual fixed payment and not fluctuating with increases in ICE time, and that would be the 30% of the project. So it's one other, whatever you would like to look at, but I wanted you to have some context of options. And then just a note at the bottom that whatever you would decide to do would need MDE approval for an updated lease agreement. Director Subert, anything you'd like to add to that?
All right, questions? Vice Chair Dressley?
So did we ever find out, did they bond for this with the city of Hastings? Is this going to be double taxed for the city of Hastings and then an extended tax to the people who don't live in the city of Hastings? Way for them to tax them as well? That's just my concern, of course. I don't.
So we did, like Tammy mentioned, we had a meeting yesterday, and the city administrator had shared that you know, it would not be their intent to double tax people, to have the city tax, as well as the school district. However, I think we both are very, our knowledge is very specific to our industry, you know, so like I know the school district side, he knows the city side. I think the way we left that meeting is we didn't have 100% assurance of how that would work. So that's why our financial advisor at Ellers, they have a city division also. So he's been kind of working with that group to kind of hopefully pull in some of that expertise to really understand how it would work. So at this point, we don't have a 100% answer on that, but it definitely would not be the intent.
I'll just add to that, I can confidently say that we will get to the very bottom of it before that, and there would not be double taxation of our community.
Other questions? Comments?
A
Dr. Zuzak?
question on source. If not bonding, it would be through a lease levy.
It's the only way.
That's, and that is a tax. So,
What would, from my estimation and just knowing the school finance piece, the structure of the payments would have to get adjusted. And so that at the end of the day, the dollars that would be received would total that amount. So they would have to change their structure of their payment schedule.
So levies are supposed to be for learning. I'm right about that, right? Yeah.
So this, currently we lease levy for the ice time. Mhm. And that is typical for any off-site space.
Okay, so I guess then my next question is, how does this improve student outcomes? Because that's what we're here to do. At the end of the day, that's what our decisions should be based on. So how does this improve student outcomes? It's a lot of money.
And we don't have this in the budget. Exactly.
This would be lease levy, so it would not be general fund, but it would be tax.
Director Biermeyer?
Well, yeah, that's, I wanted that to be brought up about the general fund. Staying out of the general fund would be important to me. I'm really disappointed in the time frame of this and the lack of answers still, and we have to come up with a decision. I'm really battling this one, but a lot of concerns about the lack of accountability on the city's end of this. I mean, our relationship with the city is important. There has to be some better communication with this. I'm really disappointed to hear that we're not hearing much.
Dr. Zuzak?
I'm just presenting a point of logic for consideration. There's an X that's either going to get paid by the city or by the school district. It's going to get paid. And a portion of that X, arguably 18%, is used by the school district. And the only difference between city dollars and school district dollars is that our lease is applied over a broader group of people, meaning other cities like Vermillion and townships. And so I'm not suggesting that the answer's, a strong forward yes. But if we were to decide to participate, it would be a big arm twist to go over 18%. Because what we would be doing is asking our district residents, not the city residents, the district residents, to pay for a facility that generates income for the city, and the city gets that income. So as a point of logic, I don't see a reason to go over 18%. That's just where my head is on this.
Thank you. All right, other comments? Vice Chair Dressley? I heard you sigh.
So if we're already paying for the ice time, we're paying for that 18% already. Am I right? Is that correct?
Well, that equation worked out to be exactly that.
Yeah.
So what we pay is 18%.
Okay, so we're
18% of this project cost is
what we pay for ice
roughly what
time.
we currently are paying for our ice time.
Okay, thank you.
Right,
That's interesting.
yeah, so my opinion, I've been on the fence about this one. But frankly, I appreciate Ms. Hedin's comment tonight stating that historical joint powers agreements, we have not participated in ongoing maintenance, and I'm concerned about setting a precedent there. In the past, I've voiced my concerns that we pay to rent this property. We pay for the time, quite a bit of money to pay to use that time. And I just feel like this is a regular maintenance item where the income should be coming from their entire customer base to help pay for it, and they should be charging appropriate fees to make sure that they've got long-term facilities maintenance planning and everything paid for. And I understand that this proposal would kind of mean us essentially locking in our ice time fees for an amount of time, which could be beneficial. But of course, this also includes a proposal of adding additional dollars in here. Go ahead.
It's not a proposal. This is just a consideration.
It's
So
an idea.
I just want
I'll
to
say that.
clarify.
It's an idea. So I am at this point, with all of the information, of the opinion that the district does not pay for this, that we let it be paid through our rental charges as would every other customer who uses that facility. But go ahead.
Which means it's status quo, because we use lease levy dollars to pay the rent for that facility presently, I'm guessing. And so it would be to continue status quo. I favor that slightly because, I mean, hey, weird things have happened. Look at what decisions we made this fall about football. Look at the decisions we made about baseball and softball, and none of us saw those things coming. And I'm not a hockey hating ogre in any way, but locking it in for 20 years doesn't make sense.
I agree with that. Yeah, and appreciate the comments. I appreciate you, Mark. All right, any other comments? Obviously, with this is an action item for later this evening. So any other comments or questions before we move on at this point? Yes, go ahead.
My concern is the precedent that we're not in the early part of that, and then we're brought to the table when projects are beyond shovel ready and hammers are flying, and then asking for payment at that point, that we would have some collaboration earlier in the process. And I worry about that precedent.
Thank you. All right, any other comments, questions? No, all right. Thank you. Okay, I just drew an arrow on my thing. I don't know how I did that. All right, next up we have another item that we actually have later on tonight's action item list as well, is the Vermillion Township land update.
Okay, so based on the most recent information and the fact that we would not be able to take a bus down that road due to the weight restrictions, the discussion really needs to be about the parking lot and the sign. So knowing that we couldn't take a bus down that road would highly reduce the number of students that we would be able to take to that land. It doesn't mean that we still couldn't have high school students that go. If the lot was there, we would have to have it chained when we weren't using it, so it really would not be of available to other people. So it potentially could be used for our high school students if they drove out there, but other than that, there would not be much use for it. So we're looking for a decision on if the board wants to move forward with that lot or not. And then the second piece to discuss is the sign. So even if we didn't move forward with the lot, there could still be the interpretive sign out there that would provide some historic information about the donor and what's available at that land. Joe Beatty is kind of the person that organized a lot of the collection of money for that sign. So he has an account within the school district that has $10,500 in it that he got from donors for the sign a couple years ago. And he's really looking to, continue with that sign and move forward with it. One way that the district could help support that, because that $10,000 is not enough funds for the whole sign, is we have CRP money that the district has received for that land. Right now, we have $49,550. And as we've received that money, it's been set aside in a separate account that's just carried forward year after year. The intent was to use some of that money for transportation, so that as the buildings were looking to take students to that lot, we had money set aside so it didn't become a burden at the building level. So if the board was interested, it's about $20,000 that would be needed to complete that sign. So of that $49,000, we could use $20,000 to help support getting the sign out there. And then the money that's available in the bond account is $85,900. And that could go back into contingency in bond and then be reallocated to a different project in the future.
All right, questions? So if I heard correctly, the sign is about $30,500. And without a parking lot, is there a location that makes sense to put the sign and everything?
There could be, and Joe does have some ideas for that. We haven't spent a lot of time on it. I did reach out to, because we'll have to get a permit from Vermillion Township. And Joe and I did reach out to that person to kind of just start getting some information, but we would continue to work through that.
Okay, and the sign, help me, I'm sorry, just one more question. The sign is strictly interpretive information. It's not like the monument signs that we have out in front of the buildings or anything like that. It's strictly just informational. Okay.
So it would talk about, it being donated to us by Tekla Karpin, a little bit of her history, like what kind of birds you can see out there, some of the other wildlife, things like that. Other donors that have helped support that land.
Okay, thank you. Director Pine, did you have a question?
So it's still pending, the sign is still pending approval though from Vermillion Township, correct? Yeah.
Other questions? So again, this is something we'll be voting on later tonight. So, all right. Thank you for the information. All right, next up on the agenda is noted as safety concerns. This is just a statement that I wanted to make. So a couple of weeks ago, there were several news articles that came out about an arrest being made in connection to an explosive device that was found near an elementary school in February of 2023. In response, there's been some concerns brought forward by community members about district safety and transparency related to this item, or related to this incident. So last week I met with Police Chief Wilski and Superintendent Champa to discuss the situation and what actually happened. And I do want to ensure everyone that there was no perceived threat whatsoever to the school, which is why this was not initially communicated to the public. There was a thorough investigation done by the FBI because of its proximity to a school. And this, I just want to assure the public that this board and administration is thoroughly committed to both safety and transparency. And so with that, I can assure everyone that if there ever is a real threat, God forbid, to the safety of our students or staff, it would be well communicated. So just want to make sure that that's clear. Are there any questions, comments? All right. Moving on. Next up, we have the Building Construction Fund project update from Ms. Subert.
Okay, so the Building Construction Fund accounts for the money the district received from the voter-approved bonds, and it can be used for school renovations and improvements. The updates since last month are not many. And our unallocated balance right now is at $182,460. So that will be available to either reassign to other projects, or we know that there's some taxes that we'll need to pay related to this account. And then as far as projects go, the middle school pod redesign was moved into in process. The high school student entrance bollards right now are in design, but that project has been completed. We should be seeing an invoice on that shortly. And then the total remaining is 2.4 million. And while there's not a lot of updates financially right now, a lot of work really has been happening in the last couple of months. So it just takes time for the invoicing and the closeouts to happen. So if there's any questions, I can take them.
All right, I don't see any. Thank you. Right, next up, we have an update on the legal data requests from Ms. Mullen.
Good evening. Since the last board meeting, the legal bills that have come in did not contain any costs related to data requests. We have had one additional data request come in since the last board meeting. That was actually withdrawn shortly after. And we currently have 5 data requests that are in process that we're working on.
Thank you. All right, and next up, we have our reports out from our school board representatives and committees. First up is ISD 917 with Director Zuzik.
Thank you. ISD 917 has been hiring feverishly. Last month, Mr. Bruns intimated that it looked like, for the first time in a long time, it looks like we've got the staff that we need, particularly mostly teachers, but the same thing happened in 917 that can happen in any district where you will lose staff toward the end of summer. And those losses are unplanned. And then in addition, finding enough paraprofessionals is still a struggle for 917. And so we, even in situations where we have enough classroom teachers, there are many classrooms in 917 that have multiple paraprofessionals and one teacher because of the level of programming that's done. So we have our next meeting is next week, and I anticipate hearing that, boy, we were really close, but now we're not quite fully staffed. But it's better than it's been. The economy for hiring positions has been better. The employment position from employers is better, I would say.
Good to hear. Thank you. Any questions? Yep.
Did they speak at all to the success, and maybe for the education of other districts, to their virtual interview process for paraprofessional positions? I know that they were doing, you signed up for a slot and then you just kind of hopped in and that was ready to go. I wonder if that removed some barriers, if it was helpful, or if it was an attempt at something innovative, and maybe on the first few attempts it didn't draw maybe the way they anticipated.
You know, there wasn't a comment about that at all, Mr. Bruns, but there was, there are teachers that have been hired that came from different countries. And the success from that program made us think, hey, why don't we hire paraprofessionals that come from different countries? I mean, they are talented people that are just in a different economic situation. So.
All right, any other questions, comments? Thank you. And next up, we have our AMSD update with Director Bruns.
Yeah, for this, I wanted to feature their regular communication out to their members, but it's their connections. Two really nice points of interest. One kind of builds on things that 917 has done and other intermediates where they're bringing in talent from overseas through a visa program. And this one just shares how Fridley Public Schools implemented that, and it went really well. Another positive note to share on page 4 of this exact same report is the closing of the cross subsidy. Remember, a lot of work 2 legislative cycles ago went into that, and now it's been cut by about 50%. It's still a huge number because the number is in millions. But if we can bring that down to 0, the windfall to budgets across the state is huge. But there's a federal lift there. There's a promise through IDEA to pay the bills for special services for students and other things and other 504 services that isn't fulfilled, but the state is doing its best to close that over time. So it's nice to see that number fall. We still have a lot of work to do, but it's a bright spot budget-wise.
All right, any questions or comments? Yep, thank you. Next up, we have the Community Collaboration Committee update from Director Pine.
Yes, the Community Collaboration Committee reconvened and, put forward the timeline of the future dates of our next meeting. The first one will be September 17th, and we're going to continue with the roundtable style where we're sharing additional information, a little bit deeper dive, bringing in experts on student safety, engaging the learners with the new cell phone policy, and then just talking about further communication methodologies to develop, further progress. And then future topics, we'll continue to get their feedback. And then we've already set the dates for into 2025 for another meeting with the community in January and then another one in April.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? All right. Moving on to the Facilities Committee update from Director Milner.
So we talked, actually, Scott Stockdale was introduced to us, and he went through a lot of the projects, and he's trying to sort through everything that he's new to here. So that was a good update to kind of hear where things are at and some things he's still figuring out. We were told the corridor changes at the middle school might be a little delayed because some of the frames coming in were delayed on the orders, so that's still in progress. Gender neutral restroom update, the grant was approved, and so just the timeline on that was discussed. So ideally, starting May or June with completion next summer at Kennedy. And the nature preserve we pretty much talked about tonight, so no real more information than what we've already discussed on that. Solar projects update. The contract is currently with legal for review. Is it on tonight's agenda? It is. Solar? No, September's. We'll be talking more about that. And the landscaping, we all agreed, looks really great and really amazing. So that's a wonderful update and facelift for our district. And future meeting topics, we were just kind of brainstorming. Middle school tennis courts have some concerns, and so we'll be talking about that coming up. And then lighting of the high school tennis courts will be discussed.
All right, any questions or comments? All right, and I have to say, during the middle school orientation, I told my kids a little forcefully, don't you dare walk on that new sod. So we're not going to show anyone that we're walking on the sod. Everyone needs to stay on the sidewalks from now on, right? All right, thank you. Next up, Finance Committee update from Director Zuzik.
No meeting since the last time that the board met. Our next meeting is on October 15th. And there you go.
Thank you. All right, and next we have the NAPAC Committee update from Director Bruns.
Yeah, short term, they are in that planning phase for Indigenous Peoples Day in October, but they've got some really cool long-term and long-range plans in their sites, which it's really fun to be a part of that group and listen to them expand their work. But they were awarded $75 grand for 2024, 2025 from AIEA. They want to expand their presence. They had planned a presence at the open house at the high school. Can anyone confirm that Because I was not at the high school open house, but I know that they
I
had their
was
sites set on it.
running from place to place
Okay.
and we didn't even get a chance to see the tables, so unfortunately.
For the academic
Oh,
year.
wait,
that-
wait, wait.
Oh,
Nope. I saw Keegan there,
of course, it's amazing.
so.
Timeline for events for this year, they're looking at October Family Night, Beading and Sewing Nights, a Winter Storytelling Night, probably around that February marker where they brought the community in before, and then another graduate honoring ceremony, and to expand on that. They're looking to expand their resources as well and going and pursuing 506 forms for Title VI support. And then they're doing some work in partnership with Pleasant Hills Library and Dakota County Libraries in general, and they're gonna be hosting a Native American author. And those specific dates for things that are upcoming for them are located in section 4 of those notes. So open house already done, presence at Ready, Set, Go at the elementary sites. Next NAPAC means Thursday, September 5th, and then Thursday, October 3rd. Their fall family night will be October 8th. And then for Indigenous Peoples Day, in partnership with Dakota County Library, there will be a Native American author October 14th at the library. So they are grinding, and it's really cool to watch.
Awesome. And sorry, I think I said his name wrong. It's Keenan, right? Keenan, sorry. All right, any questions or comments? Go ahead.
I just have a comment. We also have a tribal consulting again in October. Director Zuzek attended last time.
The backup for the backup. All right, thank you. And next up, we have the Student School Board Committee update from Vice Chair Dressley.
The committee has met twice since our last meeting. We discussed topics related to student onboarding, the Student School Board Committee procedures, interviewing guides, seating ideas for the September board meeting. And we watched a couple of videos of students actually giving activity reports during regular board meetings and also during working sessions. The onboarding date is set, and we can expect to welcome these new Student School Board representatives in September during our regular meeting. And let me just see here, we do have the committee, we also discussed the 20.1 PR for board consideration, but I'm not saying for the board to consider it tonight. I'm saying I would like the board to move it to policy committee, and then we talk about it at our working session. I just had to get it out there and for everybody to take a look at first, so that's it for.
Okay. All right. Do we have consensus that we're good with the policy committee taking that procedure from here? Yeah? Good? Okay, sounds good.
Quick clarification, I think tomorrow, I'm not in, I shouldn't be there because then it would be a quorum. You're meeting with the students tomorrow, which is perfectly appropriate.
Correct, and it's
Yeah.
not open, it's a training, so it's not like a public
Right,
meeting, yes. Yep.
yeah, so
Like an onboarding.
I won't be there and I don't need to be, so, good.
Sounds good, yeah. So the intent is, if I'm understanding correctly, you guys, the committee is doing the onboarding, and then once the onboarding is done tomorrow, then the 3 mentors will reach out and set up time with the students.
Absolutely, and I do want to mention one point on that is mentors having meetings with any of the student representatives should be in the district office. And it should be set by the district's administrative assistant for meetings, that's in the training or onboarding that everybody will see tomorrow after the students are onboarded. So that'll be sent to everyone.
Sounds good. All right, any questions, comments? All right, looking forward to having our student members joining us next month. I can't believe it's already almost September. All right, and then finally, we have our policy committee update with Vice Chair Dressley again.
So the policy committee met on August 8th, and we discussed and reviewed 5 policies in one form that will be detailed in the readings that follow. The committee discussed policy 514, which is the bullying prohibition policy, and determined that this policy will need to come to the entire board for discussion, and that will be at the September working session. Our next policy committee meeting is September 6th. And if you want, I'll roll right into readings. Okay, so tonight for first reading, we got policy 516, student medication. Every single section of this policy was updated to right set it with MSBA model policy, except for section 5, which was updated during the 2024 legislative revisions. So every other part of this policy was updated, but it's matches MSBA's model policy. Carrie did catch that I missed a sentence in section, do you remember?
I don't remember. It was a half of a sentence that was missing from what MSBA had, so I
Yep.
did. add
So that has been added on there, and it'll be in the, it'll be available for the second reading. Any questions?
I just wanted to make sure that, so the school nurses, they all approved of, because it is a major change, I'll say that. I know from history, my daughter had a broken hand earlier. She had to go down to the office to get Advil, for example, and that is, so this is a total change where kids can actually self-medicate with things like Advil when they're older.
And the feedback that I got is that that they were okay with adopting the model policy.
Thank you.
Is that accurate, Tammy?
I think so.
Okay.
I can verify.
Okay. Okay. And the next policy we have then is 516.5, overdose medication. This would be a new policy to ISD 200, and the committee is recommending adopting MSBA's model policy 516 using this our standard 3 reading process. If there's no other questions, we'll move right along to forms. Okay. Policy 514.1, it's the bullying report form. This is an administrative form, so it doesn't necessarily require board action, but we wanted to include it on here because the formatting was corrected and it is available on our website. So we wanted to make sure that we were talking about it since it is something that'll be on the website. Any questions about that? Okay. Follow-ups from our July 31st meeting. Policy 507, corporal punishment prone restraints. We had kind of put that one on hold until we had another policy committee meeting. And there were no additional revisions made aside from the revisions of the legislative updates. So everything else is exactly the same as it was during our second reading of this policy. So we're recommending that at third reading consent. The other follow-up from the 31st is policy 524, internet technology and cell phone acceptable use and safety policy. So the committee discussed adding that paragraph that you guys can all see there in our summary. And after our meeting, we had gotten some feedback we had received some feedback from legal stating a proposed change for section B of that same section there of the cell phone section. And it's the school district has reasonable suspicion that a student's cell phone or other electronic communication device contains evidence that the student has violated a school policy, rule, or law. And the school district may search the device instead of what we currently have there. So I'm bringing it to the whole board for consideration of that language since it came to us after the meeting. But that would be an individual action tonight as we would adopt it with or without that recommended change. Any questions? Okay.
No, I think, to be clear, the old language stated that didn't include the piece about containing evidence, which I think is key, right? Like that we're not just gonna grab a kid's phone if we think they did something. We're stating now that if we believe that there is evidence on that phone, that it can be searched. So I think that's a good change.
Absolutely.
It's just of interest that it's in keeping with all other school law affecting the Fourth Amendment for search and seizure, because it goes to the reasonable suspicion standard, and you do have to have a reason to do it. So I appreciate the alignment.
And that's it for first and second readings tonight. We do have third reading actions, but those have not changed since our second reading of those policies. So unless anybody's got any questions on those. Okay.
All right, thank you. Next up, we have our action items, and we're starting with our consent agenda. So I am looking for a motion on this item.
I move to adopt the consent agenda for tonight's meeting. Approve.
Motion to approve the consent agenda. Can I get a second?
Second, Zuzik.
All right, any discussion? All right, I would actually like to make one comment. We do have a couple of contracts in here, employee contracts. And then later on, we have, the school resource officer and traffic control agent, contract is as an individual action item. And I'd just like to state that, like the district, the city, both groups have been looking very thoroughly at where we sit with positions versus the market for these positions. And so you can see that there are some considerable increases in pay in these contracts. And it is due to seeing that we are behind the market. And of course, one of our top interests in the district is to attract and retain the absolute best staff that we possibly can. So I just wanted to make that comment. So there are some significant increases in here, and that is the rationale for it. All right, any other comments? All right, seeing none, could we please get a roll call vote for those in favor of, to approve the consent agenda this evening? Clerk Milner.
Director Pine,
Aye.
Director Zuzik,
Aye.
Vice Chair Dressley,
Aye.
Chair Tate,
Aye.
Director Bruns,
Aye.
Director Milner, aye, and Director Biermeyer.
Aye.
All right, with that, go down to the items for individual action. And first up, as I mentioned, we have the school resource officer contract. Do we have any commentary or anything on that this evening?
Sure.
Okay.
All right, just as it was noticed, there are some increases, which was due to the adjustments as Chair Tate just acknowledged. Also, there was just a question about, this is a 2-year contract, yet there is language in it that says that the dollar amount is reviewed annually. So it is the expectation that the dollar amount also stays the same for 2 years. However, if there were some circumstances to look at that, we would both look at that and have the option to terminate the contract at that time, if that were the case. Otherwise, it is a 2-year agreement. And all of the language, well, most of the red line language is all in coordination with the new legislation. Any questions?
No? All right. And I would like to make a comment. We, Superintendent Champa and I recently discussed this. This has come up in a couple of past meetings. We are going to have a discussion about the potentially adding a second school resource officer to the district. So that will be in our September work session, I believe, is when we put that. Yes.
Correct, and that wouldn't be, the consideration would be for 25, 26.
Right. So we'll be having a discussion on that item. All right. So I am looking for a motion on the school resource officer and traffic control agent contract.
Zuzik recommends approval.
Second, Dressley.
All right. Any discussion? All right. Seeing none, Clerk Milner, please take a roll call vote to approve the school resource officer and traffic control agent contract.
Director Pine,
Aye.
Director Zuzik,
Aye.
Vice Chair Dressley,
Aye.
Chair Tate,
Aye.
Director Bruns,
Aye.
Director Milner, aye, and Director Biermeyer.
All right. Thank you. Motion passes unanimously. What? Go ahead.
So can we have the policy 524 move to individual action, just so that we're making that vote correctly?
Oh.
And then,
We already approved it technically in the consent agenda. So do we need to, sorry.
can leave it. That's fine.
Okay, so I just made the comment, the language was in the policy when we just voted, so I think we're covered,
Okay.
right?
And it was available to the public as written,
Yes,
It was.
yes.
so.
Okay, so we're good. Thank you, though, for making sure we're doing this right. Okay. Okay, so next on the agenda is the HCTV designation.
All right, so the Minnesota State High School League has a policy that there is a requirement to have an annual designation of the television that is covering events. And so this is the letter that is designating Hastings Community TV as our educational television producer for events conducted by the Minnesota State High School League when the district is unable to cover the events. And I also included that policy.
Thank you. All right, any questions or comments? If not, looking for a motion on this item.
Bruns will make a motion to approve the designation of HCTV.
Thank you. Did I get a second?
Milner, second.
All right, any discussion? All right, seeing none, Clerk Milner, could you please take a roll call vote to approve the designation of HCTV?
Director Pine,
Aye.
Director Zuzek,
Aye.
Vice Chair Dressley,
I,
Chair Tate,
Aye.
Director Bruns,
Aye.
Director Milner, aye, and Director Biermeyer.
Aye.
All right, motion passes unanimously. Next up, we have the hockey arena item that we discussed earlier this evening. Assuming we've already had enough time to discuss, I'm looking for a motion right away on this item.
I would feel most comfortable tabling it until next month's meeting if possible, because there was some good discussion and some ideas to pursue. But I don't know that we have all of the information that we need yet. So I look to my friends to find out. Does it get in our way if we table it for a month?
I second that.
All right, we have a first and a second. Any discussion? You sighed, you gasped, all right. I'll just explain why I'm gonna vote the way that I'm gonna vote. I feel that I have sufficient information to make a decision this evening. So I understand, I appreciate the opinion and the motion, but I feel like I do have sufficient information, so. All right, any other discussion?
It'll be good to summarize that, like, it might be that if it were summarized here right now, I might be able to jump on to that.
Okay,
The reason I was considering tabling it is I don't feel like I have the information.
Okay.
So I'm,
sure, so I can explain my position. So you have a motion right now to table. So the reason that I feel I have sufficient information right now is, as I've stated before, and as was stated earlier, in fact, that, and you had said that this is a facility that does produce revenue for the city of Hastings. It does not the townships do not see any benefit from the income from that facility. So having the taxpayers be bonded for it, I feel is in fact appropriate. The city taxpayers, that is. As we only are an 18% user of this facility, I do not feel that we should pay any more than that. When we've talked before about, the 30% projects and stuff, I feel like those were not situations where we were actually paying rent to use the facility either. It was more of we need some upfront money to take care of this, and we weren't renting space, we weren't, it was building, right? So it was that. The other piece that I feel like, and this was discussed, the failure to basically come to, I feel like this should have been a conversation that we had 3-4 years ago, frankly, if the city was wanting us to pay for part of this. So I feel like the approach is not appropriate. And I know that hindsight's 20/20, of course. But I feel like coming to us when it's already underway and they already have the projected cost and everything is not appropriate. The other thing that I think about as well is we are talking about, we use it 18%. And there is, I don't know what the percentage of it is of students who actually play hockey, but those are the families, we just earlier this, I don't know when it was, a couple months ago, I think we approved the new rates for sports participation. We know hockey is the most expensive sport. It always will be, and that is a burden that is taken on by the families who choose to participate, to have their students participate in hockey. So I feel that taxing the broader base for what is ultimately a small percentage of students for ice time that we are already renting, I don't feel good about this. And then the final piece, as I had mentioned earlier as well, is that I feel like this is a dangerous precedent to start setting, where we are involved in the maintenance of these facilities that are not owned by us. And I said finally, but I don't mean finally. I feel that we have a lot of great things that we've been talking about with secondary, the secondary reprogramming the secondary options and looking at these academies and all this kind of things that are going to be fueling our future more. I feel like we need to look at spending our money wisely, bonding wisely, doing wise levies to really fuel the academics in the future of this district, to not, I'll say, either stop or turn around the student loss, right? We're a declining enrollment district right now. And I think that we are better served by focusing on our money on those efforts versus paying for a hockey arena roof. That's where I'm at. So, laundry list. Director Biermeyer, did you want to say something?
No, that was well said.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was. Very well.
That was well said.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I would comment that in addition to what you just said, an understanding that I have then is that we would continue to pay for our use of the hockey facility in a status quo, in that we pay what their ice time is.
Correct.
And
we know that our ice time rates will highly
Increase.
likely will go up.
we'll increase, yeah.
So we may need to be, again, revisiting our rates that we're choosing to charge our parents, and it is what it is.
May I ask if there's any further discussion at the table? Because I want to
Yep.
come back
Absolutely.
to something.
Any others?
What this discussion is about right now is the possibility of tabling it until next month. And I wanted to do that because I felt like I didn't have all of the information. Your description with that small addition was what I was looking for. And so, Director Biermeyer, I made the recommendation to table, and I would like to rescind that, but that would take your agreement.
You had my agreement, yes. I
Okay.
second that.
Right? Because both people have to
Rescind.
agree.
Yep.
Okay, so the motion on the table has been rescinded,
Has been rescinded.
all right? All right, and then now we get into my knowledge of Robert's rules, right? I think we're good.
One block comes
Yep, one
off.
block, yep, we're good. All right, with that, I'm looking for a new motion on this item then.
So I motion that we do not move forward with allocating funds to the hockey arena roof at this time.
Can I get a second?
Pine second.
All right, any further discussion? All right, with that, we will take a roll call vote to not spend any additional dollars on the hockey arena.
Director Pine,
Aye.
Director Zuzek, Vice Chair Dressley,
Aye.
Chair Tate,
Aye.
Director Bruns,
Aye.
Director Milner, aye, and Director Biermeyer.
All All right, with that, the motion passes unanimously to not allocate any additional dollars to the hockey arena. All right, moving on, we have the Vermillion Township land. And this is again another item that we discussed earlier this evening. I am looking for a motion on this item.
I motion that we reallocate the $85,000 to reallocation and that we consider the additional $20,000 out of, I can't remember the fund's name now, out of the CRP for the nature preserve sign.
Okay, looking for a second.
Second,
All right,
Zuzek.
any discussion? Okay, so now I get to see if I can restate that. So we were looking for a roll call vote to reallocate the $85,000 from the parking lot back into the bonding, basically back into the building. Thank you, and the contingency. And continue with the nature preserve sign, which was allocating an additional $20,000. Okay. Clerk Milner.
Director Pine.
Nay.
Oh, Director Zuzik.
Aye.
Vice Chair Dressley.
Aye.
Chair Tate.
Aye.
Director Bruns.
Aye.
Director Milner, aye. Director Biermeyer.
Aye.
All right, thank you. Motion passes 6-1 in favor of reallocating the funds and spending $20,000 on the signage. The nay is Director Pine. All right, and next up we have our international trips. We have one trip to Greece, which has been approved by the board previously. Tonight we are approving a pre-trip, and this is one staff member to go to Greece in advance of the actual trip. The other trip is a trip to France for students with no pre-trip involved. So I'm looking at a motion for the two international trips.
Bruns recommends approval of the 2 international trips.
All right, can I get a second?
Pine second.
All right, any discussion? All right, I would like to make a comment on this one, a request, I guess it is. So this pre-trip thing is a fairly new concept for folks, and I guess my request in the future would be that if there are pre-trips involved, that how those pre-trips are being paid for is very clear to the parents when they are signing their students up for these, because in fact, the pre-trips are paid by the parents. So that's all I'll say. All right, so with that, we are looking for roll call vote to approve the two international trips. Clerk Nolan.
Director Pine.
Aye.
Director Zuzik.
Aye. Aye.
Vice Chair Dressley.
Aye.
Chair Tate.
Aye.
Director Bruns.
Aye.
Director Milner, aye. And Director Biermeyer.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes unanimously to approve the two international trips. And finally, on our agenda, we have our future meetings. And I see on here, we have a student onboarding, but this is actually not an open meeting, as it is seen more of a retreat type topic. Our new students will be onboarded with the Student School Board Committee. And then we have a policy committee meeting on September 6th at 10, this says 10 p.m., it should say 10 a.m. So I'm not meeting at 10 p.m., sorry. My brain will be fried by then for policy discussion. And then our next meeting is our regular board work session on September 10th. And if I can get that up real quick, sorry. I I'll let you know what is on the list so far. So right now on our for our September work session, we have to draft the board 3-year work plan, to revisit our strategic work plan, talking about our student school board procedure, as was mentioned earlier. We have our budget and audit overview, a PFAS update if needed, but I'm guessing with our update, we may not have one. So, and then we will be discussing the additional SRO, which was already mentioned this evening as well, and our superintendent's goals for the year. Then we have our community collaboration meeting on September 17th at 6 p.m. We have another policy committee meeting on September 20th, and that one will also be at 10 a.m., not 10 p.m. And then prior to our regular board meeting on September 25th, we will be doing a building tour of Tilden at 5 p.m. with the board meeting starting at 6 p.m. The items that I have listed for our September regular board meeting are to approve the 3-year work plan, discuss the solar project as was discussed earlier, and then approve the superintendent's goals for the year, as well as, of course, welcoming our new student school board members. So, all right, anything else anybody needs to add on future meetings? Yes?
So I don't know if this needs to happen at tonight's discussion, but we do need seating for the new student school board members, so I don't know if that entails an additional table or if that can be discussed outside of our regular board meeting. But we don't have another committee meeting for the student school board committee, so.
Can we discuss it at the work session?
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Yep, we can add that I'll add the seating discussion to that work session then as well.
Thank you.
All right, sounds good. Anything else? All right, and with that, I am looking for a motion to adjourn.
I motion to adjourn.
Come on, we need a second.
Second, Milner.
All right, any discussion? All right, Clerk Milner, one last time, could you please take a roll call vote to adjourn?
Director Pine.
Aye.
Director Zuzek.
Aye.
Vice Chair Dressley.
Aye.
Chair Tate.
Aye.
Director Bruns.
Aye.
Director Milner. Aye. Director Biermeyer.
Aye.
All right, thank you. Motion to adjourn passes unanimously. Motion